Okay, so the coming 2 weeks, we're discussing a very, very profound, touchy, sensitive issue. The status of a ubar in halacha, which actually is nagea halacha in various different fields. To what extent do we need to go out of our way to save a ubar? Chilul Shabbos to save a ubar, would it be defined as pikuach nefesh, which would necessitate Chilul Shabbos and terminating a pregnancy, which is the most painful and severe question in the entire spectrum of DNA ubar. So I am aware that America is busy now with the Supreme Court ruling, which coincidental has a shaykhis with today's discussion. So because this is such a halachically sensitive issue, and I'm not confident that the proper forum to speak halacha l'maisa is in a broad, general Yachikala session, I think I will try not to give piskei halacha regarding terminating pregnancies. What are the circumstances in which it might be permissible? But we will focus more on the fundamentals. So in today's session, let us start off with the din of harigas ubar from the Gemara. Sanhedrin Nun Zayin Amud Beis. Reb Shlomo, I don't see my screen. I only see myself, but I don't see anything on the screen.
Because we didn't know what the Reb wants. So we have the basic Maram Kaimis, we have Nun Tes, we have Nun Zayin.
Nun Zayin Amud Beis.
So with Nun Zayin, Reb Pesach, it's probably easier in the...
N'ksev b'sefer Agadete de Beirav. Sefer Agadete de Beirav. Ben noyach nered b'dayin echod, be'en echod, sheloi b'asroa mipi ish. Mishum Rabbi Shmuel amru, af ala uberen, menohan amela. Omer Rabbi Yehuda diyom akro, aches dimchem lenafshesechem medroish, afilu b'dayin echod, miyad kol chai. Mishum Rabbi Shmuel amru, afala ubrin, my tamed Rabbi Shmuel d'chsev, shoyfer dam ha'odam ba'odam dome yeshofach eis ha'odam shu ba'odam hava oimer ze ubar shebeme'ei imo. So the Gemara darshans in Masechet Sanhedrin that non-Jews b'nei noyach nereg al uberin. And the drosha is shoyfech dam ha'odam ba'odam. Is there a human being that is in another Odam be'odam ze ubarim? Mechlal hein atu shomei alav. So obviously, Yisrael einoi nerad ala ubarim. That's exactly because of referring only to a ben noyach. Would that mean that a Jewish person has no isser destroying a ubar? Taisus deals with this question 3 different sources in Shas. Sanhedrin, Chulin, Nida, Daf Mem Dalet. Let's have a look at Masechet Sanhedrin. Nun Tes Aleph, not on the spot, not Daf Nun Zayin, but rather Nun Tes towards the bottom of the Omen. So the Gemara says, Lekemida del Yisrael Shori, Ben Noach have 7 mitzvahs. We have 613. It is impossible, inconceivable that a guy has a mitzvah that we don't have. We should have more than them, not less than them. So Tosfos says, "Lekemedam di Yisrael Shoro, v'ala ubrin the oived kechovem chayo v'Yisrael koto." אבל גב דפוטו מכל מוקם לא שורי. Well, Yisor is poto doesn't mean that it's permissible. אבל גב דפוטו מכל מוקם לא שורי. מיהו כושר? ימין המפלג בין סויר למויר, יוצא רויש אין נוגן בוי. דאידוך הנפש מפני נפש. It's interesting why Tosfos quotes a Gemara when it's a Mishnah in Masechet Oris, as we will shortly see. אבל קודם שיוצא רוישוי, החיה פשטס יודו, וחוית חסוי לאיבורים ומוציאו, כדי להצל הסימוי. וכי היי גבנו ביובד כחום המוסו, כיוון שהוא זרע על האוברן. ויש לו אמר. דהונם ביסור מצווה, כדי להציל, ואפשר אפילו ביובד כחום המשורי. This is a fascinating thesis. So this thesis contains two different parts. Number one, Yisor Einoi Nered ala Ibn, but it's also, Thesis does not say why it's also. What is the source, the origin, and the time, the reasoning of the Issa? And that breeds many different approaches and opinions. Because Thesis says it must be also, but we don't know why it is also. And that is a huge discussion. As we will see, probably not today, maybe in our next session. And then Tosfos asks, but there is a scenario, there is a situation which for Yisrael it's a mutter and for Goy it's also mekasher leiled. When a woman has difficulty during childbirth and the baby, the fetus endangers the mother's life. So that is Yisol Shori, would have been Noach also. Tosfos answers, it's not Yisol Shori, it is a mitzvah Yisol, it is a chiyuv of pikuach nefesh. And therefore, we don't have a kash. And then Tosfos says, ve'efshar, da'afilu bi'yovet kechot b'mishori. And that's a fascinating efshar. What is the suffix of Tosfos? The suffix is, yes, the Gemara darshans akum nerag ala uber does not mean that by Bnei Noach, a uber and a baby, a human being, are exactly the same status, or no, they're not the same. Neither by Yisor nor by Bnei Noach. Elo shegzeras hakoser sheben Noach nerag ala uber. It does not mean that Bnei Noach or Ubar is a nefesh. And therefore, Tosfos is mesupik, maybe in the situation of a mikasha leilad, when we need to decide it's either the fetus or the mother, we destroy the fetus to save the mother. Even though Ben Noach chayav ala Ubrin, but not in a situation in which the mother's life is in jeopardy, which is a fascinating chakir, suffix. And as I try to explain, for Jews, a fetus is not a nefesh, as we will shortly see the Mishnah and PROHIBITION. And maybe even for a goy, it's not a nefesh, but afal piken, akum nerag ala uber. Let's go over to Sukkah Mem Daled Medalef. So Tosfos deals with the question, are we machal Shabbos?
Passed it. Neither Mem Daled.
Neither Mem Daled Amud Beis. It starts, so the Daled goes over Amud Beis. We need neither Mem Daled Amud Beis. Here we are.
The Tosfos starts in Amud Aleph.
Starts in Amud, but we need the section that's Amud Beis. So Tosfos deals with the question, are we machal Shabbos to say the ubar? And Tosfos says, maybe yes. Hege de meeste chayim is in de komuna because of the imtam. Imtim tzeloi me de mutar orgoi bebeten, velo meiste imoi velo have a komuna mekisa, amai mechaler an olavis a Shabbos. Shemavian saken derech rishus harabim lekroya em and to save the Omar, as we find in Erech in the Zion. The Yesh Loimar, the Mekor Moko Mishum Pikuach Nefesh Mechaler an olavis a Shabbos, Afal gav de mutar lehargoi. The goises with the yodam hargoi potur. The afal began mechalelen olav eis Shabbos. Toises writes mutar lehargoi. This says Toises seems to say there is no prohibition, no isa to destroy a fetus, which contradicts Toises in Sanhedrin. And if there is no issue to destroy a fetus, the kasha of Toises Sanhedrin once again rises. The Gemara says, "Lekem idam dili yisor shori ula akum osu." So as we will see along the way, some achayim, including the Moshe, are so adamant. It is totally unreasonable, impossible, that there is no issur to terminate their pregnancy, and therefore they say, when Toises means mutar lehargoi, lav dafka mutar, eino chayav misa, but we can't say mutar. The problem is, Toises says mutar. So when is it legitimate to say, no, mutar doesn't mean mutar? Mutar means also. So the Moshe argues, Toises brings that ayah from Goises. Nobody says that Goises says mutar lehargoi, hargoi potu. So probably Toises means the same regarding a fetus. Anyway, regardless of the Toises in Nida, twice in Shas, Chulin and Sanhedrin, Toises says it's an Isser. And all the poskim all agree it is an issur to terminate a pregnancy. What is the nature of the issur? We will see down the line. Now we go over to the Mishnah in PROHIBITION, where we see that by Jews, a uber is different than a full-fledged human being. That a baby after he's born, Mishnah in PROHIBITION Perek Zayin, who isha shehi mekasha leilei, mechat chen hasavlad b'mei eyu, v'moitzian oisoi eivorim. Well, medicine has somewhat advanced in the past 2,000 years, but obviously at their day and age, when the doctors realized that something is wrong and the mother is not successful in getting the baby out and the mother's life is in danger, the only thing they could do is go into the uterus with a knife, cut the baby to pieces and pull them out, eivorim. Sounds horrific, but al pi halacha, that is what is to be done. The life of the mother overrides the life of the fetus. Isha she mekasha leilin mechat chen hasavlad b'meyeu v'metzir oisoi eivorim mepnei shechayeu koitmin lachayo. Yotzo ruboi eino igemboi she'ein doichen nefesh mipnei nefesh. So obviously, as long as the baby is not yet born and his head is not out of the uterus or the vagina, he is not considered a nefesh, and therefore chayeho koidmen lachayov. Would this halacha apply to goyim as well? That's the sufficient we saw just a moment ago. But nevertheless, this Mishnah clearly proves that a ubar is not defined in nefesh. So when we need to choose between one's life and another's life, My chozis, the domech ledach sumek tvei, ilmed domed edei sumek tvei. No one life is more precious than another. And when one's life is in jeopardy, and the only way we could save it is by sacrificing another's life, we have no right to sacrifice. We cannot even sacrifice one man's life to save a group, as we see in Masechet Trumas, in the Tosefta, and in Yerushalmi, that we will see along the way. However, when on the balance is a fetus against his mother, chayeho koidmen lachayo. Yotzoroshe eino giboy, ein doichen nefesh mipnei nefesh. So the conclusion we learn from this mitzvah, a ubar is not a nefesh. Which brings us to a Gemara in Sanhedrin Ayin Beis. And I just want to revive your memory. Just a moment ago, we saw the Tosfos in Sanhedrin Udas Medalet, and Tosfos quotes this halacha, Yotzer Reishe Einogem Boy, from the Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Tosfos doesn't quote the Mishnah, but the Gemara quotes the Mishnah. So, Omer Rav Huna, Sanhedrin Ayin Beis Amid Beis. Koton haroidef nitan atziloi benafshoi. A minor is chasing another person with a gun or a knife in his hand. Hard to imagine. But in this crazy United States of America, every day there's another serial killer and there's another mass shooting. And sometimes even minors kill people. Koton haroidef nitan atziloi benafshoi. Even though a koton is not a bar oynish, but the din of roidif is not about punishment. It's not about penalizing. It's about saving a person's life. And therefore, even if the roidif is a koton, nitan atzila benafshe. Eis v'erev chizda l'erev huna. Rav Chizda has a kash from the Mishnah we just learned in Honest. Yotzer roi she'ei nogam boy, lefi she'ei doich ha'nefesh mipnei nefesh, v'amai. Roidefu. It's a baby. It was just born. But even a kotna roidef, nitan latzila benafshoy. The Gemara says no. It would be a mistake to define him as a roidef. Shana hosam. The mishmayo karod fela. It's not his choice. It's not his will. Nobody asked him. So when Rav Huna says, it is intentional. His intent is to kill. He's a minor. He's not a bardas. He's not a bar onshin, but he still is a roidef. And he's chasing a person with a knife or a weapon with intention to kill. And that is why he has a din of a roidef nitan atzira ben afshay. Mekash eleilei. It's not his choice. It's not the baby's choice. It's min hashamayim. Mishamayim korad farah. And therefore he does not have a din of a roidef. And that is why ein noigem boy. We leave it up to a kodesh baruch. We do not sacrifice one life to salvage another. And now comes along the Rambam, Pilei Plois. So the Rambam in Hilchos Sayach. Ratzech v'shmiras hanefesh, Perek Aleph, Halav Etes. A Peledica Rambam. The Rambam brings the halacha mekash leirei. Mechat chenoisei avorim evorim. Why? Because he's a roidei. Okay. So the Rambam brings the din of a roidef achach avera lehargoi. Matzilim es nefesh anir de benafshe shel roidef. Em einem yecholim matzilim noiseav benafshe. Harei ze mitzvos lo yises shelo lachos hanefesh roidef. Leficho chayru chachamim שהוא עובר ראשי מקשר לילד דמות הלכתך עובר במייהו, בין בסם, בין ביד, מפני שהוא כרגע אחרי ולהורגו. ואם ישוי, אינו גמוי, שאין דרך נפש מפני נפש, וזה טבעו של עולם. It is clear from the Sefer in the Rambam, when the Rambam writes, Ein doichen nefesh mipnei nefesh, v'zeu tivoi shel olam. That is the Rambam's interpretation in the Mishnah. Ein doichen nefesh mipnei nefesh, and his interpretation of the Gemara Sanhedrin base. The fetus is not a roidif. Why is he not a roidif? Tivoi shel olam. That's the Rambam's explanation when the Gemara says, Mishomaye korod felei. It's min hashamayim. It's nature. Nature is a Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's not the fetus or the baby that has any kavana, any intention of harming the mother. And therefore, he's not a roidif. And that's why ein doich nefesh mipnei nefesh. So why does the Rambam explain that the reason we destroy the fetus is because he is a roidif? The Rambam Turcha Deitiva says he is not a roidif. Zeh tivoi shel olam. Is he or is he not a roidif? So this Rambam is a gewaltige Pelle. Shulchan Aruch quotes the Rambam as is. Choshe Mishpat Daf Chav Hey. So this Rambam actually is halacha psuko. And the Shulchan Aruch quotes both parts of the Rambam. Yotzer Reishoi Eino Gaboy, Tivoi Shel Olam. I don't know whether we have the Shulchan Aruch on our screen, but the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Tov Mafei, towards the end of Choshe Mishpat, quotes the Rambam.
Sure.
So the Rambam is somewhat confusing. Is he or is he not a roidif? And I'll tell you why this is such a fundamental, important question. One of the questions, to my terrible sorrow, I've dealt with so many times, is a very common scenario. It is a far more common scenario than a Mekasha Leilei. It is very uncommon in our modern day and age that we need to destroy a mother to save the mother during childbirth. We do C-sections all the time. And if something goes wrong with natural birth, with labor, this is done 1,000 times every day. So the scenario described in the Mishnah is a very uncommon one. A scenario in which we need to kill a fetus, destroy a fetus to save the mother. What is more common is a very, very painful scenario. And that is, okay, this is the Shulchan Aruch we have on the screen, right? Okay.
Yes.
So see, follow, we have the dinam of roidif. Lefichoch. Ha'uberes shehi mekasha leilei mutalach lecha obe b'meyeu ben b'sam ben b'yad mepnei shuka roidif ha'el ha'arba. Emoitze roish enogim boy. Exactly the lashon of the Rambam. And why do I stress the Shulchan Aruch? Because that's halacha psuka. So I started to explain a painful scenario. A woman, a pregnant woman, and they find a malignant tumor, a cancer in her body. And it's a bad cancer. Needs to be treated immediately if we want to give her a chance of survival. But they cannot administer chemotherapy or radiation while she is pregnant. So protocol is they terminate the pregnancy in order to treat the mother. And that is the more common situation, more common scenario than Amakasha Leilei. The Amakasha Leilei is not relevant today. It is almost never a situation in which you need to kill the baby to save the mother. No, you try to take the baby out of the mother's belly. You do a C-section. Sometimes the child will perish. But there's never a situation in which we need to destroy the fetus to save the mother. That is no longer relevant. The question I described is a question I needed to paskin 100 times. Let me say this. It is my destiny, and I thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for it. I get more of these severe shilas every week that the common Rav and Shtetl and Poland or in Hungary got during his entire life. I needed to deal many times with questions of androgynos and terminating pregnancies for a million different reasons, amongst them cancer. From the halachic perspective, this is a fascinating and troubling question. So in modern medicine, we would not administer chemotherapy to a pregnant woman because that would be extremely compromising the baby, the fetus. And therefore, protocol is we terminate the pregnancy to treat the mother. In our frum society, so many times the mother says, I want this baby and I am willing to take the risk. And the doctors say, we might be losing time. With cancer, you'd never know. But if it's a violent cancer and it's a malignant and spreading rapidly, that we might be losing the window of opportunity. And the doctors say, if we don't start treatment immediately, it might be too late. The mother is torn to shreds, and she says, I'm willing to take the chance, and I need to explain to the mother, no, it's not the right thing to do. But sometimes it's extremely painful. Sometimes the couple have been waiting for a long time for this baby. Might be IVF, might be their only child. And the mother pleads. I would try to persuade and convince the father and mother to terminate the pregnancy to save her life. Life is more precious than anything else. But on the other hand, the doctors cannot promise that her life could be saved. They could say she has a better chance if we try to start treatment immediately. It might be successful even if we postpone treatment for a few months. It might not be successful even if we terminate the pregnancy and start treatment at once. So I cannot say al pi halacha that she is mechuyev to terminate the pregnancy, but it is something which I will always try to convince. Chayeu koidmen, that's a mission. That's a mission. Nobody disagrees with the mission. And even in the times of the mission, when we say, they couldn't say in certainty that the mother will be saved. They try. Maybe it's too late. Maybe we can't save the mother's life. But still, any time we're Mechala Shabbos for Chodesh Yesh B'Sekana, nobody can say with certainty that we'll be Matzliach and saving the Chodesh Yesh B'Sekana. We try. And when we try, we're Mechala Shabbos. When we try to save the mother, we destroy the fetus. What is the problem with this scenario? By Mechat Chenes Avlad, it is the baby that's jeopardizing the mother's life. And therefore, according to the Rambam, the baby is a roidev. But in the case of cancer, it's not the baby. It's not the fetus that's jeopardizing the mother's life. It's the cancer. It's not the baby. The baby is okay with his mom. If not the cancer, it's a healthy pregnancy. So in this case, we cannot define the baby as a roidev. The baby is not the roidev. It's a tumor that is the roidev. The baby just prevents the doctors from treating. So according to the Rambam, there would be no heter to terminate the pregnancy to save the mother. And after Piken, I passed it 100 times. We terminate the pregnancy to save the mother. How do I dare give such a psak? Well, I hope you all understand the lumdus because it's a fascinating question. By Mekasha, Leila, the Rambam defines the baby as Eloide because it is the fetus that puts the mother's life in jeopardy. But when we're dealing with cancer, it's not the pregnancy. It's a healthy pregnancy. It's not the baby that's jeopardizing the mother's life. It's the baby jeopardizing the mother's life in an indirect way. It's just that the doctors won't treat her. Now, let's go a step further. Al pi Allah, is there a heter to terminate the pregnancy? Or maybe we should treat the mother without terminating the pregnancy. Wow, this is becoming very complicated. So why in modern medicine would we terminate the pregnancy? Because in modern medicine, maybe in modern ethics and philosophy, we say we have no right to compromise the fetus. The fetus could be born a healthy baby. If we give chemotherapy, we are compromising the health of the fetus. We have no right to do that. So is it better to destroy the fetus than compromising its health? What is better for a baby? To be born unhealthy or not to be born? Are you familiar with the dilemma? To be or not to be? I don't want to say where it comes from. Those of you that know might know. To be or not to be? Do we have a right to terminate the pregnancy and destroy the life of a ubar because we don't want to compromise his health? So this is a triangle. Who comes first, mother or baby? Mother comes first because he's a fetus, he's not a nefesh. Chayeu koidmen. So it would be justified to destroy the fetus to save his mother. Would it be justified to compromise the fetus to save his mother? If we could destroy a fetus to save his mother, could we wound him to save his mother? Could we impair his health to save his mother? Ilu Yodeinu Tekifa, if the entire medical establishment would act in accordance to Allah, what would our psaka be? Do everything you can to treat the mother without terminating the pregnancy. The baby might be born with extreme defects. Cognizance, health-wise, you might be extremely compromised. Is that better than destroying you more altogether? So in modern medical ethics, we say, no, we do not have a right to compromise the baby, and therefore we terminate the pregnancy. I'm not giving you a maskona, I'm just giving you food for extreme thought. This is an extremely serious dilemma, ethically and halachically. But let's go back to our question. If the heter to terminate the pregnancy is based on roide, in the case of a cancer, he's not a roide. There's a shalas etchuvas koyach shor. It's not a very well-known sefer, but it's a choshev sefer. He was a contemporary of Rebbe Kiva, gave it some sefer more than 200 years ago. If I'm not mistaken, he might have a stomach that might be Yehuda. He describes a shaila, and maybe towards our next week's year we'll have this on our source sheet. He describes the shaila of a pregnant woman that had extreme bleeding. And the doctor said, it's not from the pregnancy. It's not caused by the pregnancy. But we cannot stop the bleeding unless we terminate the pregnancy. That is exactly a similar question to cancer. The bleeding is not caused by the pregnancy, but it's an internal bleeding from somewhere, And the doctors say, if we don't terminate the pregnancy, she will bleed to death in a short time. We need to terminate the pregnancy to stop the bleeding. And he paskins, we have no right to intervene. Because if it's not the pregnancy causing the bleeding, then he's not a roidif. According to the Rambam, if he's not a roidif, ain't nothing boy. And that's his psak. And I disagree. Here we have it, amazing. Yeah, Koyach Shor Rabbi Yitzchak Shor. Reb Shlomo, your team is amazing, but you caught me off guard. I don't recall which simon it is. I dealt with it in my chuvas, so I can't. Let's see who's as come as Yasser Yosef Shor, nothing, so nothing going to be. But I think it was a contemporary of the Noida. Anyway.
I'm looking to see if we can find the simon, but the Rav should continue describing it.
I'm just continuing. So I say, we will let the mother die and the baby die, and they both die because you don't want to intervene. That doesn't make sense. That just doesn't make sense. The doctors say, if we don't terminate the pregnancy, we can't stem the bleeding, and she will bleed to death. So is the baby going to be better off? Doesn't make sense. So yes, in the Mishnah and Trumas, the Brais and Trumas, the Goyim says, if you don't give us one, we'll kill them all. We don't give out anyone. That is Toli Babos of Adam. We hope that those crazy Goyim, those murderers, are just threatening. But they won't go through with it. But in a medical case, why would we let mother and baby both perish? Because we don't want to harm the fetus. So anyway, let's have a look now at the Akiva Eiger. And the Akiva Eiger wonders about the Rambam. Why does the Rambam write that the reason we terminate the pregnancy is because he's a roidef? The Gemara says he's not a roidef. Mishumaya korat falei. So how could the Rambam say he is a roidef? And if he is a roidef, so there seems to be an internal contradiction in the Rambam, and the Rambam doesn't.
Back on. Okay, so put the Rambam back on so everybody can see it again. The Akiva is a Mishnayos, correct?
It's not that important, I'm just explaining. If we can easily have it, we'll have it. If not, we'll just move on.
The Akiva is in the Mishnayos and the Holis, correct?
Right. No. The Akiva Eiger is in Sanhedrin. Chidusha the Akiva Eiger and Sanhedrin. The Akiva Eiger and Shas. I think it's also in Mishnayos. It's copied from one source to the other. I think it's in Tosefes the Akiva Eiger and Mishnayos. It is also printed in the Nur the Akiva Eiger Sanhedrin.
Take a look at the Mishnayos for Pesach for a second. Let's see if it's printed there so that I look and see it.
If we go back to the Mishnayos,
you're going the wrong way. You're going the wrong way. The other way. Where is the Mishnah? No, we passed it.
Okay, let's skip the Akiva Eiger. What I would like is, could I have the Mishnayos, not from Mishnayos?
Akiva Eiger, right on the right side. We did Akiva Eiger.
Scroll up. This is the Akiva Eiger.
Pull it down, Pesach. This is the one the love thing for.
Here we are. Mishamayim karat falei. V'Rambam perek alav menachzesech kosov avzu mitzvos loises shalom lo chasan nefesh yotzech. Etiru chachomim shoberesh imakashalel mutar achtach mepnei shu karoi defachayom. Rabbi Akiva Eiger is hutamu alachayim. Do'ochalav mishum roi defasina ala. B'yotzer rebo yainoi geboy. Elu hakoch achatam mishum do'ubar. Einoi nikro nefesh. Ayin shuvis. Loi nikro nefesh. Shuvis go'ine besroi. Divrei Rambam huva b'choy shemishpo. Ve'ef shemishum debet noyach osa la'areg ubrem af shesroi neret on ze. Sorach l'tam da'ave karoi. Sorach yim. Sorach Biyur. But he's not a roidif. I want one more source before we wrap today's shir up. I want the Mishnah Perek Zayin Aholas from Shas Vilna, not from the Mishnayos. Peresha Mishnah La Rambam. I want the Peresha Mishnah Rambam and the Mishnah Aholas if we could fetch it. The Mishnah Aholas from Shas Vilna.
Zayin Vav. Let's go to the Peresha Mishnayos. You'll have to go back to your. This was not on our list, so we have to go back to the machine. The Rebbe, give us 1 second. We'll get there.
Okay, fine. We have time.
Here you go, Rambam. Beautiful. Keep
Okay.
No, you have to go further, Rapesa.
To go further down.
No, this is the wrong Mishnah. This is the wrong Mishnah. You have to go to the next Mishnah, Pesach. You see what?
Well, we need to go down. Here we are. This Mishnah.
Yeah. Okay, now go to the Rambam.
That's one little line. Ze kulei pashut ein sorech biur. Wow, is that so? Kulei pashut ein sorech biur. What I want to prove is there's a stira in Rambam. Ein sorech biur. So why do we have 2 columns of Reb Chaim Brisker in Ein Sorech Biur? Why is Rabbi Kiva Eger puzzled by the Rambam in Kuloi Poshut ve'Ein Sorech Biur? If the Rambam has some explanation that this baby is a roidef and he's not a roidef, he's a roidef Achiyotza Roishoy, he's not a roidef Mishiyotza Roishoy, would the Rambam write that Kulei Poshet Ein Sorech Biur?
Not to mention that he adds Zet Tivoy Shel Olam, which we're not sure where that comes from. So that's not Poshet at all.
Tivoy Shel Olam is Mishomaya Karad Falei. But all the Achronim are puzzled by this Rambam. Until the Minchas Osha, nobody comes up with a really reasonable explanation, as we'll see next week. So how does the Rambam write this entire Mishnah? I don't need to say anything. It's so pashut. It's clear that the Rambam, at least when he wrote the Peresha Mishnah, understood, like Rabbi Kiva Eger quotes the guy in the Basroi. Oh, but it's not a nefesh. So it's pashut. The life of the mother comes before a fetus. A fetus is only a fetus. It's not a nefesh. So the Rambam, when he wrote the Peresha Mishnah, wasn't in the shitta that we need the heter of roidef. I agree. Whenever there's a contradiction, it's still between Peresha Mishnah and Mishnah Torah always overrides the Peresha Mishnah. That's a klal poshut. I just want to note one little ha'orah. There's another way to understand this halacha. And that other way is based on the Gemara Sanhedrin. The child is not a roidef, zeh tivoy shel olam, mishomaya karat falei. And the reason machatcha noisoi, v'moitzia noisoi boram is he's not a nefesh. And that is why the Rambam writes, this entire Mishnah, kolei poshut ein sorech biur. So I owe you 2 things for the shir next week. How do I explain the Rambam? Roidef, yes roidef or not roidef. And I'm very proud of this chiddush because it's only one of 2 chidushim in my sporim in which I got a very enthusiastic haskoma from Moran HaRav Shach. Rav Shach learned what I wrote about this and he was very, very excited. And he told me that it's 30 cents. Only on 2 chidushim that I ever get the personal haskama from HaRav Shach, from the Abiezri, and this is one of the two. So I'll keep you in suspense till next Sunday, and we'll learn my interpretation of the Rambam Roidef, and we will also study the Koyach Shara, and why, according to my chat, I disagree with this psak, and that is why, in the many cases of cancer found during pregnancy, my psak is we are allowed, and it is recommended to terminate the pregnancy, to do our utmost to save the mother's life. So I still have two obligations tonight. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemai. So we'll see you next week. Be'ezus Hashem. Thank you for being with us.